Hello and welcome to Night Owl Philanthropy Podcast, and I'm your host, Dean Jones. And in this series, I ask charity leaders and change makers to tell us about their why, the purpose, experience and values that drive their work. Each episode goes beyond campaigns and job titles to uncover the real stories and motivations behind social impact leadership, exploring what it takes to stay resilient, purposeful and passionate in a demanding sector. Today we're leaning into those themes through the lens of cancer care and hospital comfort. And I'm delighted to welcome Lorraine Lewis, co-founder and CEO of the Lewis Foundation, Northamptonshire's charity delivering free gift packs to adult cancer patients across 17 Midlands hospitals, easing fear and loneliness at the bedside. Lorraine, thank you so much for joining me. Let's begin, as always, with that key question: what is your why? When you think about the work you do now, what really sits at the heart of your support for cancer patients?
Thanks, Dean. For me, it's about making people happy. So when we're seeing somebody, it's leaving them in a better state than when we found them. So it's all about bringing joy for us during a difficult time, and more importantly, letting people know they're not alone. So it's the community's got their back. That's what we're all about.
Great. And can you take us back, I think it's to Lee's mum Janice's time in hospital. What was it about that experience that first sparked the idea for the Lewis Foundation for you and Lee?
In relation to when Lee's mum got diagnosed with cancer, it was the first time I had personally had any experiences of cancer. Lee had from other family members, but I think for us, it just really opened up our eyes about what the reality was like when you're in the heart of that situation and then walking onto hospital wards, because you don't really know what goes on the cancer ward until you're actually in that situation. And then just seeing the isolation experience by people, which I didn't appreciate. A lot of people don't have anyone that visits them, or their family and friends might not visit because they're scared. And there was a lot of loneliness and people not being able to afford things, which I didn't appreciate because they're not able to work. And there was just nothing to do to kind of improve that experience, just to get you through the day. But what really highlighted it for me was at the same time as Janice having cancer, on my side of the family, we had a young family member having cancer treatment as well, who was 5. And when we would go and see him, we saw that for the children, there was lots of things to kind of keep them going with their physical and mental well-being. So they always had gifts and visits, and it was bright, and they had activities. And then when we went round to see my mother-in-law, there was just nothing. And we just thought, just because you're an adult doesn't mean you don't want the same support as children do. You want that love, that care, that things to keep you going. And so it was really that identifying what we saw on the children's ward really opened up our eyes about why can't adult cancer care be better, and why can't adult cancer care have that additional support for physical and mental well-being like we do for children. And it was when Lee and I started to test. Actually, let's start to bring things that we see happening in the children's wards for adults. And that was where it was like going to the hospital shop and buying puzzle books and magazines and sweets, and then just going around and having conversations with people. Where it might be one day we'll go in and we'll bring like lots of like bacon rolls and stuff on the morning just to kind of perk people up. And we just saw that it was just those small things that made the difference. So for us, it was being inspired by everybody deserves some support and care, irrespective of what age you are.
In those early visits to the ward, what did you see and hear that shaped your mission to focus on comfort and those small kindnesses that you now make available? What was it specifically that geared you towards that area of support, do you think?
I think it was realising that actually the hospitals don't provide that. When you're not there, you just assume that people have everything that they need on tap, that they would have toiletries available if they've rushed in and underwear, that they would have things there to keep them occupied, like they would have a TV to watch that was free. And I think it really shocked me actually that when you go into that hospital setting and you're probably in one of the most vulnerable times of your life, that those things are not on hand, and that you're spending so much time, for example, when we were on Talbot Butler ward, which is the inpatient ward in Northampton General Hospital, well, my mother-in-law could be there for weeks on end, and it's a lonely time. Visiting hours were like 4 hours a day maximum, and the rest of the time people at home. So for us, what we saw is that actually these things that people need are so simple. They're not asking for big grand gestures. They just want, it might be they want some shower gel, or they want a conversation with somebody because they've been in their room shut off for like over 20 hours without any other contact. And I think it was just realising it's just the basic human elements that people needed. And I just felt, and Lee felt the same, that everyone deserves to have those basic elements. So why is it not happening? It just seemed like we couldn't understand why it wasn't available. And nobody talked about it outside the hospital. We just assumed it was there. We just couldn't understand why something so simple wasn't available and why nobody else was doing anything about it.
I think you've touched on this with Janice. Was there a particular patient or family moment where you thought, yeah, this is exactly why we need to do this? Was it directly related to Janice, or were there other instances, other individuals that you saw that kind of motivated you to want to do it?
Yeah, I think it's just going in there all the time. And when you go in there, there's families in the same situation as yourselves. And then you get to know other families as well. And you realise, I don't think there's a specific person that made me think, oh, let me do something and let Lee do something. It was just being there constantly. My mother-in-law was diagnosed in 2010. And so in that period, so 2010 to 2014, she was constantly in and out of hospital. So over a 4-year period, you're just watching and you're observing and you're just seeing the realities of what's going on. And when you're in that world on a day-to-day basis, it's just like, why is nothing being done? And you can see people struggling. And like I said, it goes back to that. The things that people needed were so simple that we just felt we had to do something, because it was just, everybody was struggling. And there were things that we know that we could put in place that would make someone feel so much better. And it wouldn't take a lot or cost or time to do that. So I think it was just those observations over a 4-year period. When you're immersed in it, it really opens up your eyes to what people are going through.
Great, thank you. So you've gone now from local deliveries in Northamptonshire to supporting 17 hospitals.
In hospitals now, and the reason for the spread to that many hospitals is my mother-in-law, she would be in Northampton, but when she had a bone marrow transplant, because they didn't do it in Northampton, she had to go to Leicester. And so when you get to Leicester, that's where people are asking, oh, where's my gift and my visits? And that's how we're spread with the hospitals across the Midlands, because it's not guaranteed that you'll get localised cancer care based on your type of cancer. And that was something, again, we didn't realise was a thing. But the why hasn't changed, because what has made us realise is what the work that we were doing was universal. So even though we started off in Northampton, and to be honest, we didn't think there would be a great need for what we were doing. We thought we would just be on Talbot Butler ward. It was like a little side tiny project that we would do. But then realising that no matter what hospital you were in, everybody was experiencing the same thing, having the items they needed or having the conversations to keep them going. We realised it wasn't actually just tailored to one particular ward or hospital. It's actually something that's on a wider scale. So for us, the why hasn't changed, because we realise that it's so important that people are not alone when they're going through cancer treatment, and they have the support and care they need. So if anything, the fact that other hospitals are contacting us drives us to think, like, how can we help even more people? And we get hospitals contact us from all across the country asking for our support. So we know that there's a need for what we do. So yeah, the why hasn't changed. If anything, it's a drive to help as many people as possible.
How do you usually introduce yourself and describe your role as both the CEO and the founder of Lewis Foundation and the purpose of what you do?
I would probably say, my name's Lorraine. So, for example, if I'm going into a hospital, because we get asked that question a lot, is we provide packs to support you whilst you're going through treatment. It's about providing things that will help pass the time, provide comfort based on personal experience, and then I'll go into it that way. So I think from my point of view, I do it for a more storytelling purpose. So then I'll come to the same level as a person. So it's easier to understand than afterwards what I can say about what the title is. So yeah, I do it kind of the other way around. So I think that's why we get the connections that we do, because it's really about people understanding the story and the purpose. That's when they buy in and support what we're doing, or if they're a patient or want to take, so kind of do it the other way around.
Great, thank you. And when someone asks, so what does the Lewis Foundation actually do for cancer patients? How do you explain it in simple everyday language?
Yeah, so I say that we provide free packs and support to adult cancer patients in hospital, so that people have something to help pass the time or make them feel a bit more comfortable, and that we provide support in terms of conversations so they know they're not alone and that there's people out there that care about them. So us is about the driver. It's a community initiative, and that even though we're strangers and we may never know the people who made the initial donation, it's about the community will come together in their time of need to help somebody. And that's really something that's really important to us, and that we should be in isolation, that we can support a stranger when they're in their time of need.
And where are you joining us from today, Lorraine? Are you at home?
Yeah, so for today, it's been a really nice day, actually. So I started the morning with one of our business supporters, Stevenson's Online. So they support us with surplus stock donations. So I went there to make a collection of toiletry-based items that will go into our gift packs, which is wonderful because it saves them actually paying for the items. So those partnerships are really, really important. And then afterwards, I visited Lake Lakeslands Hospital in Corby. And so the hospice manager, Kathy, we've known since the charity started and helped us to get it off the ground in Talbot Butler Ward in Northampton Hospital. So it was learning more about what the hospice does in Corby and potential ways that we could work together, because what we didn't realise, to be honest, is that there's no particular like cancer base for adult cancer patients in the Corby area. So if they're being treated or need to attend an appointment, they would have to go to either Kettering or Northampton based on their type of cancer. So I was looking at what potential ways we could explore in terms of working together. And then, now back at home for the podcast. So it's very varied, my days. It's never the same, which is actually really great. And I get to meet so many different people. And what I love is everybody that I meet is about what we can do together to make a difference to people. Every day has it's a real mixed bag of what I can expect.
Yeah, and sometimes that might mean you're in the warehouse. Sometimes you're in a retail outlet, which I know you're expanding by the months by the looks of it. So the warehouse is an addition to how you store and keep the stock that you have. How does that all?
Yeah, so that's like a central base, which we for the first time have our own space from November last year, where the Lewis Foundation operates everything from. So that's where we do all our storage. That's where we do our gift packing. Everything runs from there. So we run twice weekly volunteer sessions. So the Monday will be with our existing volunteers, often who are people that have had cancer or their family member or friend has had cancer. And now they want to give back to support, which is wonderful because they actually really get what we do. And then every Wednesday, we have different businesses in the community that will volunteer their time to help us prepare and package the gifts ready for the hospital. So it's quite, in terms of the background, as an operation in terms of the stock coming in and being logged, and then the gifts being packed and prepped and sent up to the hospitals. But also it's a space where we're managing the donations that come in, like the surplus stock donations I talked about, or it might be general donations from members of the public. And it's, with over the years, it's the first, when I think back to like 2016, it was absolutely carnage. But now we've actually got systems and processes in place so that the packs are flowing out every week, because now the hospitals look forward to it, the patients look forward to it. So the setup we have is that the packs happen every week so that we can get it to the hospitals. No matter what day of the week you go to the hospital, we've got a Lewis Foundation pack waiting for you to support you. So, it's great to have that space, and really proud to see where it's come from being our packing out.
You talked about how things have evolved and grown at such a scale. Can you take us back to 2016 or 2016? What did those first gift packs look like, and how are you sourcing and delivering them in the very beginning? Was it a much more manageable process than it is now?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I remember when we started, so we relied heavily on family and friends to fundraise and ourselves, because we had this idea that we wanted to provide the packs. So when we first started, the packs, in terms of how they look, haven't really changed, actually. It's just that the number of packs have evolved over the years. So we always wanted it to be like in a gift bag. So when people access it, it was a nice treat rather than just a bag with just something that's got sample products or things like that in it. It was always ways about having packs that had full size, if there were toiletries or if there were books, branded, brand new products. We wanted it to be a treat for people. So when we started, we looked at 8 packs that we had identified from when we were in the hospital settings for that 4-year period. And things that we noticed, such as an overnight pack. If you rushed in, you've got no toiletries of underwear with different size underwear in it. And we did things like puzzle books to pass the time or blankets to keep people warm. And what we found at first, even though we'd been kind of testing it, I don't know, because it became a charity, people got a bit scared. So they were a bit worried that if they took a pack, then we'd be asking them for money. It took a while to persuade people that actually we're just giving you a pack. Because
people are suspicious of anything that comes for free, aren't they?
Yeah, we had that all the time. And then sometimes I would say no, then I watch us walk around the whole ward. And then when they saw we didn't exchange any money, then I'll call you back to the bed. So we had a lot of that. And so we work closely with the nurses, and they, really help to explain to the patients that actually this was a service for them to access for free. So for us, the core essence of what we're doing in terms of providing those packs hasn't really changed from day one. So they look the same. The contents are the same. It's just that the volume has increased because over the years, we've identified for patients and hospital staff what would help them, and then what gifts that they select in the hospital will be a benefit to them. So, so the early days, it was just trying to persuade people that we're actually genuine and not dodgy.
Yeah.
Also, outside the hospital, persuading people that actually giving a gift and your time can help, because a lot of people, because we were very new, they wasn't aware of this concept where why is there people in hospital doing this and how was it actually going to help. So that took a lot of time to like educate people actually that this is helpful. Even though we're not, say, treating the cancer, this is still important for people's physical and mental health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what are the current statistics in terms of cancer diagnosis? Is it 1 in 2? Is that still
1
the
in
case?
2, so it's high. And like over the years, like when we first started, it was more the older generation that will be on the cancer wards. And over the last 10 years, I've really seen like the age rate go down, and it's all ages, and that can be quite hard to see. More people being diagnosed with cancer. And sometimes I do think it's because of the technologies we have, people are being treated quicker and things that are probably coming up that probably wouldn't have been spotted before. So sometimes I might feel like there's more people, because there is, but there's more technologies and treatments now, which probably highlighted it more than we did before. So we find there's more people living with cancer, which makes hospitals feel even busier as well. So,
of course.
So the one strain on everything. It's very busy in there, but I think it's because more people are living with cancer because the treatments are better.
Yeah, and I suppose in that respect, when you talk about the strain it puts on hospitals, that you're not just supporting patients in what you're doing, you're also supporting the hospital and in terms of the service and the capacity to deliver service. There's something in what you're doing which is just making that little bit easier and less stressful, I suppose, and sort of like smoothing out the edges a little bit for the actual process itself in terms of provision of care from the nurses and doctors that are on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. They are so busy and they have so many people to treat. So sometimes they can't give that one-to-one conversation that the patients are desperately looking for. So we can go in there and just check in, have a chat. The nurses often don't have the time to as much as they would love to. And so it gives them that emotional connection. And sometimes for the nurses as well, they can find it quite difficult to have the conversations with the patient. So they'll try and provide a selection of Lewis Foundation packs for them to pick from, which can act as an icebreaker to facilitate conversations as well. So I think we can help support the NHS in terms of we provide that level of emotional support that they just don't have time to provide, but also access to products and items that people need that, again, the NHS can't afford to provide. But it makes people's patient experience a little bit better.
And you talked about kind of the development from delivering a small number of packs to, I think you're on about 1,000 a month. Is that right?
Yeah, 2,000 at the moment.
2,000 a month. So how does that impact on you personally and what you do? Because the bigger things get, so you've talked about volunteers, and that's fantastic. But as things grow, it's almost like, where does it stop? How do you put boundaries around where and when you can't do things?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been learning about like the delegation aspect, which has been quite hard, because when you've started something from scratch and then you have to let then other people take control, which you have to, because it's not possible. There's not enough hours in the day to do it. And I tried up until COVID, like myself and Lee, with the support of volunteers, to try and do as much as we could. But it got to the stage where, like 2019, it didn't feel great. I felt like if it wasn't for COVID giving me the chance to rest, I felt like I would have burnt out, because it was just relentless, because we were doing everything and anything. And then after that, going forward, it was like, okay, we've got these different aspects, like what can we share with other people who are actually confident in leading this? So, for example, the gift packing element, now I don't have any involvement in that process. We have a volunteer called Natalie who's been with us from the very beginning. Every Wednesday, so she works 4 days a week. Wednesday's her day off, and the thing that she loves to do on her day off is lead the team building sessions with the businesses. And so she manages all that. So it means then on that day, I can go off and do something else, but it might be help raise funds or speak to a business. And then even in terms of we've got the retail outlets in Northampton, in the shopping centre and the cafes. Again, it's been about having people responsible in those locations and taking the lead. I'm there to support them always, but I'm not in there day to day. So I think the key to enable the growth of the Lewis Foundation is to delegate, but also have effective people around you who have the same values and passion and mission to make a difference, and that they're executing that vision on your behalf. And that's what helps the Lewis Foundation to grow.
Can you share an anonymised story from those early days, or as things have grown, that really showed you the emotional impact that a single gift pack could have on an individual? Do you have some examples in your mind of instances?
Yeah, I do. I know we share about, I'll actually mention his name because it's really important. When we were in the beginning of the Lewis Foundation, 2016. So we met a guy called Mike, and he used to go to his work, and Lee was working in a cafe, and he had no family and friends, and he was diagnosed with cancer. So every day he would come in, and Lee would either have his break with him or lunch, and just provide him a bit of support in terms of having conversations and someone to talk to. And then we provide him with a gift pack. So, for example, he was going through cancer treatment, so he had one of those PICC lines, which is where they insert the needle. So it was difficult for him to wash, so we were able to source him a cover so he can still use the bath and shower to protect the kind of PICC line wire that was in his arm. And it was just simple things like that. And then when we were doing the charity, as I said, we were relying heavily on family and friends to fundraise, but then they're like, you're on your own. We can't fundraise all the time for you. And so in the February 2017, we were running out of money. And we were debating whether actually is this something we should continue, because financially we couldn't afford to supplement it on its own.
Right.
And then Mike passed away, and that's all the message that we got from the hospital. But because we didn't know anybody he knew, that was the end of it. But then like a month later, we got a letter to say that he'd left £50,000 for the Lewis Foundation because we helped him to feel cared for when he had no other forms of support. And I think for us, that really confirmed actually that's the power of what that gift pack and that time can give to someone. It really means something to somebody. And he enabled us to have enough money to keep our stock going for a period of time and to be able to help day patients in Northampton General Hospital. It confirmed to us that actually what we're doing does matter and is important. And so, Mike was amazing.
This year, Lorraine, as you probably know, is the year of storytelling, and that just demonstrates how important telling those stories is, and the impact of your work, and what then gets other people engaged to want to support and continue the good work that you're doing, because it doesn't happen without that support, does it?
No, we couldn't do it without. It's like literally the community like does every element to make what we do possible, whether it's like, you might with your legacy donation, or it might be we have people in retirement homes that knit blankets that go onto the ward because they can't physically come out to volunteer, or people that write letters that go into the gift pack. I just feel like what the Lewis Foundation has achieved is that anybody can make a difference, and if we find a way, then everyone can contribute to do something to make someone's lives better.
And talking about that involves a degree, you're building trust with people essentially, aren't you? So you also need to build trust with the hospital staff who in the early stages would have been a bit cautious about somebody coming onto the wards and giving out bags, which potentially could have anything, So you're doing a lot of relationship building in all different ways, whether it's networking with your businesses and your supporters and with the patients themselves. And then obviously also the professional staff that sit on those wards, not sit on the wards, but work on those wards and support How do you go about doing that? How did you overcome that initial caution that you might have experienced from those professionals on the ward?
I think it's because we've been there, it makes it a lot easier. So when we were approached the hospital, as an example of Talbot Butler, because they've seen us in there for 4 years and they've been watching myself and Lee bring in things and they could see us have easy conversations. It wasn't awkward conversations with patients. It kind of made it easier for the nurses to put us forward and say to the hospital, actually, like, they've been doing this. We've seen those interactions and we've seen the difference they've made. I think because we'd had that direct personal experience and then we're being observed actually naturally doing it anyway, it made it easier for us to make that first initial hospital contact happen. And I think from us, what's really been important is about being visible as well. I think there's charities personally, because I'm thinking before we started the Lewis Foundation, I didn't personally, or Lee didn't really engage with charities because we couldn't see those stories and we couldn't see people. Like it was kind of felt faceless, and we couldn't then see if I donated, like I could see the end result. Like for example, I could see that person in the hospital receiving what I'd fundraised for. So I think when we did it, it was about like what would attract people like myself and Lee who wouldn't contribute to charities to actually make a contribution and want to get involved. So from day one, we've always been very visible, and you'll always see us everywhere and anywhere. And to be honest, it's like, that's not us as people, but we know we need to do it to be able to get the support and the help that we need for the patients. So I think it is being about, it hasn't felt hard, if I'm going to be honest, to get people to buy in, because, see me and Lee online is the same people that we see in person, and the people around us are the same. People we see online are the same person. There's no difference to who we are as people. And I think just showing people that storytelling, like that story of Mike saying what the impact it can have just through one gift, but also being able to show, like, for example, here's the donation. Say there's your product, you might have donated a bunch of books, and then we'll take a picture when we're packing the books at the unit warehouse. And then when we're at the hospital, you'll see us, oh, we're at Northampton General Hospital today delivering those books thanks to this person. We try and do it so that you can actually see the journey of what your support is making.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Something very tangible about the thing that you're doing,
tangible.
isn't it?
Yeah, it has to be. We want it to be like a tangible, direct impact. And I think that's why people buy into what we do, because they can see it, and that they can see that we're visible and that we're actually honest and passionate about what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm really committed to it as well.
Yeah.
You now, as you sort of alluded to earlier, have a sizable volunteer team. And what did you learn early on about coordinating volunteers that you still rely on today? Because there's an element of trust that you talked about. There's an element of delegation that you need to do. And obviously, these individuals who are giving up their time are doing it out of the goodness of the heart, because I'm assuming beyond that, there's not necessarily a capacity to pay people to do the work they're doing. Is that right? So it's relying on
it's relying on their goodwill, to be honest. You're right, Dean. So we do have paid team members, only because sometimes, like, volunteers, they can only commit. They might be only able to commit a few hours, or every now and then. For example, if we've got the shop, we need like somebody that's paid, so then the volunteers can work alongside them, so we know that the shop stays open during its core hours. In the locations, we have paid staff work alongside volunteers. In terms of the actual gift packing, like, purely volunteer driven. And I think what we've learned over the years is that, you know, people can be a volunteer, but you have to be the right volunteer, and they have to be passionate and believe in the cause and care. So we are very much in the place that if you don't fit that, then you can't be a part of the Lewis Foundation, which might sound harsh, but we have to have the right people involved that are passionate and care about the cause, so that we can make the difference and the impact that we do. I think where we really struggle is in the hospitals, actually, in terms of people find it difficult to walk onto a hospital ward and see cancer patients and have the conversations, which I totally understand, because sometimes I think of it like, for example, in the inpatient ward, it's like walking into somebody's bedroom. It's such an intimate space. They're in their pajamas, all their personal possessions. And we have to be able to, we don't know what that person's going to be like on the other side of that door. Open it and be able to, like, interact straight away, regardless of what state they look like. So what I've learned over the years is every volunteer has a certain skill set. So if you're in that situation in the hospitals, you need to be empathy, you know, not showing any fear to put the patient, make them feel really bad about what they're going through, and just be kind of a person that's naturally at ease and having conversations, no matter whether somebody's newly diagnosed or end of life. But then you've got your event volunteer that's ones out confident in approaching members of the public, gift packing ones to be organised. So it's about learning the right skill sets, but also it's very important that they have the right personality and fit for the organisation as well.
Because it's also about your reputation as an organisation, which you have to really protect, I think. So that's what carries you forward, I suppose. And the additional
reputation is everything. So that's why, you know, if sometimes we do have people on board and they don't fit how our vision and our values and our mission are, then we do say that will not be organisation first, and I'd rather make that decision that the Lewis Foundation maintains the reputation it has than have people on board that doesn't fit that.
And that goes right back to your why you're doing what you're doing. And if it's stuck to that, you know, that reason, then everything else will fall into place around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just talking about the patients again, and you mentioned it was, you know, quite an intimate space on the wards. And it can also feel, even though you're amongst lots of people, you can feel incredibly isolated on a ward. How do you help your supporters and partners really understand the reality of what that must be like without them sort of seeing it firsthand? How do you paint that picture for them?
Yeah, I think what we were really passionate about is the patient testimonials. In every gift pack, we put a little card, and they can either WhatsApp, they can email, they can write. We provide various methods of different ways they can contact us to share. If you received the pack, let us know how it made you feel. And this is what encourages people to support the Lewis Foundation. Though a lot of times you will see on our social media, when our newsletter will be a picture of a patient with a pack and a quote, or it might be a quote from a family member or friend sharing how it made them feel. And when people see that, they're like, actually, that does make a difference, because it's come from it's actually a real person. It's not like it's being a made up character it's actually having a tangible impact on somebody's life by making a contribution. And then we do video testimonials as well, so that people can actually see the person as well and hear from them. But I think what's been the most powerful one for us recently is the podcast we've launched, Through the Big C, is where we're having long form conversations with people. So we're taking them on the journeys. The whole point of that podcast was that people can hear real life stories from patients, supporters, family members and healthcare professionals, taking them on the journey of like from the moment of like somebody being diagnosed through to remission, or it might be the person supporting that person has died and what it was like end of life care, post somebody dying. It's really about to get people to understand that kind of like what happens in the hospital is telling those stories, but directing the people. We need to hear their voices. I don't think it's very powerful in the people's voice. Yeah, for us, it's not about, but when we hand the gifts, it's not about going to the hospital. If you look, when we're at the hospital on our social media, you don't see any of us like taking pictures with the patients or physically taking patients on the ward on the handout, because we still to maintain that kind of privacy, because it's a really personal and dignity. And that's why we put the card in there, because if they want to share it at a later date when they're in the right mindset, then they do it. And we also want them to realise that when we go in and provide a gift, we're not doing it for show, we're doing it because we actually care. So that's why we flipped it that way, because we get people ask all the time, why don't you take pictures of the patients in the hospital? But it's not the right thing to do.
No,
it's too intimate, and like you said, it's like maintaining someone's dignity when they're going through a really difficult time.
And so you're a podcaster, you're running these retail outlets, you're running a warehouse, you're out there networking. How many Lorraines are there, really?
I wish I'm just very organised. I'm very focused and disciplined in what I do. And like I said, it's taken a while, but like I felt like we've got a really great team of people involved, whether that's paid staff members or volunteers, that enabled me to have the time to really focus on the additional projects that I've been doing, like the podcast and like building the corporate partnerships. It really is because of the team around that's given me the time to do it. Plus, I have to be really focused during the day, making sure I don't get distracted.
Sure. But you also have to have skills behind all of those things. Do you have a sense of where you've developed those skills? Because you had a professional career in law, right?
Yeah, prior to this. And to be fair, that's like those skills have served so well for the charities. Right. My background was I was a lawyer, so I qualified when I was 21. So I've been practicing law for like over 15 years by the time I left to focus on Lewis Foundation full time. And when I look at the skills I gained in terms of like when I'm doing like persuasion, so with funding applications, or it might be negotiations, having conversations to get things for the Lewis Foundation, or it might be the presenting skills and the communication skills. I mean, when you're doing law, everything is about the art of storytelling when you're trying to persuade the court. Because I was a prosecutor, to persuade them to get the justice for the victims, because that was my passion, to get justice for the victims. So there's so many elements of my law degree that I have transferred over into the Lewis Foundations. I don't find things scary. So, for example, like when we went to do the tender bid for the cafe in the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery that we run, I didn't find that scary, because with me, I just put in the mindset as I'm writing a legal argument. So, all the skills that I had gained has really served the Lewis Foundation well, I would say. And the same for Lee, actually. Lee's background he was in restaurants and hospitality. So that helped us with because I don't know anything about that. So I can get you the building, but I can't do anything else. So he's, in terms of getting that set up, he can just run with that because that's his background. So we've used our skill sets, and then we've looked at our volunteers and the people around us and asked what skill sets have they got. And then that's helped us kind of develop in the different areas we have.
I think it's amazing talking about Lee's skills, your skills, and the fact that you're doing something together as a couple, but doing it professionally and in a way that's recognised as an organisation that is successful doing what it's doing. How is that on a day-to-day basis? Is it challenging, or is that something that works really well without getting into the details?
We don't really see each other, to be honest, because we do such different things. So these is like all like the logistics, and also in terms of like the cafes, and his focus is on that, whereas mine is like the corporate partnerships and the networking, funding, and things like that. But where we do come together, where I would say we're really both good at, is when we're in the hospitals. We're really good at actually just communicating to people, irrespective of what stage of their diagnosis. That's probably the only time really now that we'll be doing something together is when we go into the hospital setting and just go and speak to the patients, which is something that we love doing.
And I'd imagine that's because you both have that shared empathy in terms of Janice, that you know what that experience might be like for a relative, but also the individual. And so your ability to communicate is not made easier because it's not an easy thing to do, but it kind of removes that barrier, I suppose. The fact that you experience.
Yeah, I'd say you're right actually, because before I remember going onto the cancer ward, you did like have that fear about the environment, what to expect. Because when you're in there for so long, you become so comfortable in that environment. Like I walk in there, I know I don't even think about it because I've spent so many years in it. It just feels like comfortable. Whereas if you're not familiar with it, I can understand how it would feel scary because I've been there. So I think it's that familiarisation and that we spend so much time in. I don't find those wards or seeing people with various stages of cancer scary anymore at all, to be honest.
That's great. Finding that balance, do you feel like you found a balance in terms of what you're doing? Do you feel like there are areas that you want to do more of but can't because you haven't got the capacity yourself to do it?
Yeah, my balance is definitely better. Probably this is the best it's ever been. It's taken me 10 years. I figured it out. Like I say, it's down to the It's down to the delegation. So, before I've always used to be into my fitness and like creativity, but for a long time I wasn't able to do that. And now, I'm doing things that I love. I'm really into like my ultra runs and things like that, which is a good focus for my mental and physical well-being, to be honest. Yeah. And exploring things like reading and writing and stuff like that. So I have started to shape in that balance. But there's so much more I could do in cancer care that I would love to do if I had the time to do it. There's so many things when you go on there, you see. And what's been really special is that quite the hospitals like trust us. So when they're like thinking of like projects or they've spotted something is there anything that could be improved? They come to us now to see if we can do something to make it better. So, there's so much more I would love to do.
Well, that led on nicely to the next question, which is what other areas would you most like to solve? What other areas would you like to be involved in the future that perhaps you're not involved in now, or is it too early to say?
I know, there's always ideas in it. So for me, one area that I'd really like to improve support on is in terms of that I don't feel cancer care should be delivered in terms of like radiotherapy, and chemotherapy between like core working hours. So it's always between like 9 and 6. And there's patients that are then not able to work because they have to have their treatment during that time. Whereas if we could explore like these treatments happening at the weekends or maybe evenings, it would enable people to keep their jobs, not financial poverty, and work it around their lifestyle. I just feel like the system is still set up in a way that it makes it harder for people when actually there could be measures in place that it could operate on a more longer term, like in terms of hours and facilities. We'll probably get more people through the system quicker as well. So that's one area I would like to really explore. And also having like a 24/7 support line or a service where what we find is people contact us all the time in the evenings and weekends when they've got their thinking time, asking information and questions. It might be like, oh, I'm feeling a pain here, or, oh, I just want someone to talk to. And again, the services are like 9 till 6. So after those times, Monday to Friday, you're pretty much on your own. So I think it's giving that more personalised care and actually thinking about, now we have to work it in a certain system, but we need to also think about how can we work it for the benefit of the patients that are being treated. So that's my next focus.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it when you're thinking about the main issue around isolation and comfort is that those hours after 6 o'clock in the evening are probably hours where you feel most isolated, most vulnerable, most alone. So that would make a lot of sense. So that people watch this space then. What sort of support would you really ideally like to see from your donors and supporters?
Yeah, I think for me, it's so varied. So we've got a retirement village in Northampton, which is incredible. So they want to volunteer. The lady that's leading it in the retirement village, she had cancer, bowel cancer. So she really wanted to do something, but the people couldn't get out. So for the last 9 years, they've been knitting like the blankets that go into the hospitals. So even though they're not actually giving like monetary support, they're giving these blankets, which we take to hospitals, and the amount of feedback we get about these blankets and that. Somebody's taken the time to care for me, somebody's thinking of me that's a stranger, is provided warmth and comfort. That's like, we want those kind of supporters that they're buying in on the long term. So it's not like we just make it one off. they've decided to lend their skill to help us. And then,
Hmm.
for example, we've got like business supporters who have been like with us on the journey from the
Hmm.
beginning, not just a one-off charity of the year. Because I don't think you can get to actually know and understand what an organisation does unless you come along with them on the journey. So we want people that are not just going to be like your one-off supporter. We want you to be part of the learning, the journey, and work and be part of the growth of
Yeah.
the Lewis Foundation. So, for example, I touched before on Stevenson's Online Limited, and I'll talk about them a lot because they joined us in like 2017. So within a year of the charity, providing that kind of surplus stock donations, encouraging
Mm.
other businesses to do that, providing mentorship, advice and support. And it's kind of like we've gone together. So
Mhm.
for as everybody that comes on the journey, finding Mara, becoming like long-term supporters of the Lewis Foundation, they've bought into it and they've invested because they can see how their contribution is making a difference because of the tangible impact that you said, that they can see it, they can hear it.
Mm.
They've got to know us really well. They've got to know the people that are part of the team really well, and they can see
Mhm.
how everything operates. So they're kind of like your cheerleaders when you're
Yeah.
not there, which is what I love because they're so invested in what we do.
And it sounds like you've built a really good relationship with which organisation was it again, Lorraine?
So
To say that.
Stevenson's Online Limited. It's Barry and Katie Tom. So yeah, we've known them for like 9 years, and they've been such incredible supporters and advocates for the
Mm.
Lewis Foundation, and it's companies like that. And we're building more companies like that, and members of the public are getting on board. They've invested in it because they're part of the journey, and they can see, they can see what we've achieved from 2017 till now, and they've been part
Yeah.
of that. So, yeah, they can
Yeah.
see the difference that's been made.
From a personal level, you're dealing with some very emotionally heavy stuff on a day-to-day basis. You're seeing people come and go sometimes, and so that demands a degree of resilience, and
Yeah,
also you need to find some time for yourself to escape some of that heaviness. So you talked about the running that you're doing.
yeah,
I
and
think
then
you're also writing. So you've written your own
a
book.
bit of my book, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I've definitely built in more activities to kind of have that downtime. So in terms of like being in hospitals, people are like, you find it difficult being around illness all the time. But I remember when I first started, the nurse that we first met that helped us to get Lewis Foundation started to say, the way you deal with it is to think that every person you've met, you've made them feel better and you've made them
Yeah.
feel happier for your contribution. So that's how I deal with it. So even if we get to know somebody really well and they die, from our perspective, there is sadness, obviously, but it doesn't make me feel depressed or anything. I feel like, okay, I made them feel a bit happier before they passed away. So that's
Mhm.
always in the back of my mind when I deal with people. But in terms of my own way, I look after myself. Yeah, it is having those plans and those activities in place, like, or challenges that I set. So whether it's doing a high rocks, because I know that it makes me feel fitter and stronger as a person, which means I feel better. And like this last year, I started getting back into my art. So I love creating, which I used to do
Okay.
at school, but just never got around time to do it until like last
Not
year.
surprisingly.
So but I love it. And that's my downtime. So sometimes I'll take like my sketchbook and that, and I'll go and paint, and I'll go to an art class every Tuesday, and I've met some great people there. And then some evenings we might go off and do like an art meetup. So yeah, I'm trying to factor in pockets of time so that I still remain me, because I felt for a long time the charity had kind of consumed my whole life, and I kind of was who I was as a person. Whereas now I feel like it just feels right. Everything feels one. So I'm in a really good
I really get that sense as well speaking to you. And it's nice, you know when you're at that point where you've got that balance, don't you? You can feel, this is what it feels like to feel, like a human being.
Good. I feel like a human being. I'm not just like, I used to feel like you're just like on a treadmill all the time. Whereas actually like, it's nice to, for example, for years we didn't take weekends off, and to have like a weekend off or a day off at the weekend. To be honest, sometimes it does feel weird because I love the Lewis Foundation so much. I have to force myself sometimes to like just like stop. But I do try. I do try it. I'm not sure I do.
Yeah. And I think that is symptomatic of being an entrepreneur or running your own business or any sort of thing that you're running yourself, is that it becomes part of you, doesn't it? So letting go and stepping away a little bit from it is a really hard thing to do, because you just feel forever responsible for everything you're doing. And everyone
But it's so important though, because I find when I take that time out, when I come back, I feel so much more on it and
Yeah.
fresher, and my ideas are better. So yeah, it's taught me that the rest is so important.
Talking about learning lessons, obviously in that period of time that you've been building and developing and growing the Lewis Foundation,
Yeah.
there have been some challenges, and inevitably when things are challenging, you do over a period of time learn from those challenges, and
Yeah.
sometimes things go wrong, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to kind of experience, failure in different areas, as long as it's not complete failure.
Yeah.
But what would you say are the biggest learning curves in the journey that you've had so far from, an idea to now being a recognised regional charity?
Yeah, it's definitely been about learning about the financial elements. We come in quite naive, like we thought we just set up a charity, and I actually don't know what we thought. We just set it up and just see what happens. Then learning about, in terms of that, you need the finances to be able to scale and grow. And I think for us, it was about really recognising the need for the diversification of the income streams, which COVID was a real lesson for us for that, because we found that overnight, we were traditionally relying on funding, predominantly fundraising, I would say, and donations. And then overnight, core element had gone, and it was like, how are we going to be able to continue? And when we come back from COVID, we were like, what were we going to do? And, Lee has always said, like, let's start to explore cafes, because I've got that background experience. And then because of the surplus donations we were getting, we were often getting stock that we couldn't put in the shop. So we put in gift pads, but they were just sitting there, just taking up space and actually costing us money. So let's start to explore pop-up shops. And I think for us, it was about learning the fact that you can't just rely on a single source of donations. It was a really scary time, actually, because that situation, it was completely out of our hands. And if we hadn't then on the way out of it, started to think of different ways that we could provide that financial sustainability for charity, we wouldn't be here. So it's been a massive learning curve in terms of how do you build that financial resilience. And we have taken risks to try and, push to get that financial resilience. We did have a shop in Luton back in 2024, and we tried it. We were presented it as a golden opportunity that was busy at Northampton, predicted income figures, and it didn't work. And it actually cost us money. We knew at the time that we had to make quick decisions and actually, let's pull it and not be ashamed about it, in that we tried. Yeah, it didn't work. What could we do to explore other elements of raising finances? Yeah, I think failure is important. You've got to try and you've got to take risks. And if it don't work, don't be ashamed of it.
I completely agree. I think in entrepreneurship, you might refer to that as fail fast, essentially, isn't it? It's fail fast. So you're not kind of have any of the risks that come with that. And it's not failure. It's, as I said, I think every failure is a learning lesson, isn't it? And,
so much. Like after that, when we were like, okay, we know now what we need to do in Northampton to improve it and make it better. And Northampton's great. It probably was a bit of too quick of a step of an opportunity, but if the opportunity came again at a different time, we'd be in a better position to prepare for it. So everything's a learning lesson. As long as you're, like you said, something's not working, you deal with it rather than letting it hang on.
Letting it keep drifting on.
Get it done, and then
So we talked a little bit about failure, and that's fine. But obviously, we want to talk about success as well. So what are your big memories around success? What do you see as your most successful points in this journey so far? And then obviously, hopefully, many more successful things to happen in the future as well.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest successes is last year when we got invited to Buckingham Palace to meet the King, because it was completely unexpected. So I got just like a random email from Buckingham Palace, which I thought was fake. So I deleted it. They all got another one. Have you received this email? So I still did my lawyer style research to try and find the person, which I did, and found they were legitimate. Right. And then they said basically they've been watching the charity for a period of time, and because the King's got cancer, they were looking to recognise people who were doing things to support people with cancer care. So last April, Lee and I got invited to reception at Buckingham Palace in one of the ballrooms, and it was such a surreal experience because we're just doing what we're doing on a daily basis. And I think, like you said, that, it's about reputation, and you don't know who's watching, and they would be watching for a period of time and doing research. And then to be recognised in that way and get to meet the King was a really incredible moment for us to think from an idea, it'd been recognised that way. And what I loved about it all as well was that it actually got people to take us a bit more seriously, because sometimes people are still a bit it's just like a charity that gives out gifts. What does it really do? But then when they saw that invitation, it has actually led to more opportunities for us, because people are like, actually, if, that Pink can take it seriously, then we can too. So it has opened doors for us.
Yeah, and to be honest, Lorraine, I think the people that know you wouldn't question your credibility at all. But you're right, that something like that, as significant as that, is inevitably going to raise credibility. And sometimes as fundraisers and people that run charitable organisations in the sector, we are reliant on those moments in time to lift the story out of where it is to a place that perhaps it wasn't before. So as much as being a great honour to have been awarded recognition by the kit, it's also great for the organisation, isn't it, as you said?
It was amazing. And what I loved is that we got to take 2 of our longest serving volunteers with us as well. And so the ones that had been with us from the beginning, and to be able to take them, and seeing how happy it made them, it was just to be able to give them that recognition too. I wish I could have taken everybody, but we had to select 2, but to give them the opportunity and how proud they felt for their contribution as well. So the importance of making people feel valued. So we try to do that. So, for example, with other volunteers, if we can nominate them for awards, like we did for the Rose of Northamptonshire Awards for some of our other volunteers, we try and make sure people are recognised and feel valued and supported. And I think that's a success for us as well, in that anybody that's part of the organisation, we want them to feel like what they do, it matters and that they are important.
Yeah, absolutely. From your perspective as a charity leader yourself, what do you think exceptional charity leadership looks like, particularly when it comes to something as personal as what you're delivering, bedside comfort? What do you think exceptional leadership looks like?
I think it's about being visible, and I think it's about being open and honest with the people around you. So, there's going to be times where you might not know the answers, or you mess up, or you make mistakes, and just having the integrity to be open and honest, which I have done, and said, like, I don't know, or I need to find out, or, sorry, I made a mistake here. Let's see what we can do to correct it. I think it's about having those open and honest conversations, and that people know that you're a human and that you're not robots. And then when they're in that position where they might have made the mistake, or, they need support, or they don't know something, that they're not scared to come and speak up. I think for me, that's been really important. I think an exceptional leader has to be somebody who's visible, that people can talk to, but they can be themselves. They don't have to be scared to say, oh, something went wrong. Well, let me know, and let's see what we can do to turn it around and do something about it. And that, they know that you have their back. That's really important for me, because I worked when I was in the legal thing. It was like everyone for themselves. So you'd be just thrown in the class, even though you haven't done anything wrong. When I come out of that, it's always important that I would have as a volunteer, a team member, whoever's waxed, and that if things get difficult, like we've had times where, the shop has not been performing well, that we'll step in and do something about it and not just watch from the sides and mind. So, getting stuck in, being open and honest, and being there.
And I think you exude that sense of being a real person, real human being, and someone that's very accessible and somebody that you can talk to and confide in. And I think you have to have those skills just by the nature of what you're doing and who you're delivering your support to. Yeah, they're great skills to have, and as a leader and somebody working for that leader or with that leader, they're really useful skills, aren't they? Because you remove all those, like you say, those barriers of fear that might come with somebody who doesn't have those skills. And for people listening who are thinking about starting a charity, so take yourself back into 2014, even when the seed of the idea is there. Would you do what you're doing now if you knew what you knew now, and would you and what would you say to other people who are thinking of setting up their own charity?
I think if I thought about what it would have taken to get there, I think it would have made me think twice, because it's been so hard. It's so hard, but so amazing, but really hard. And I think you have to first look, is there anybody else out there doing it? And the reason why we decided to do what we do is because we didn't see anything like what we're doing. So we saw people might do a generic bag, that it could be for breast cancer, or it would be, like small sample of products. There wasn't something where it was bespoke and tailored to the individual person that they could select, and then they could have the conversation, which is why we did that. Because before that, I explored so many different charities that potentially I could get involved in to see if it could match the needs that I had identified, but there wasn't. So first I would think is, depending on what you want to do, is there somebody out there that's doing it already? Because if they are, I would say join them and give them as much help and support as possible. It's only if you cannot find specifically what you're looking to achieve, then go out and do something on your own. That would be my advice.
You're solving a problem essentially, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you've identified a problem that wasn't currently being solved, or
Yeah.
wasn't at the time being solved, and you are filling that gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has to be that. Otherwise, support other people that are doing it so that it's for the greater good. If you can find somebody doing something that you already got the same idea.
That's great. Thinking about philanthropy and then the future, we touched on the future a little bit earlier on in the interview. If you were speaking directly to philanthropists, to people that perhaps wanted to support, had the capacity to support, or businesses even that want to help the cancer patients that you're supporting, what would you say they should prioritise when choosing who to support? Now, obviously, as somebody who's leading the Lewis Foundation, you'll say support us, support Lewis Foundation. But what sort of things should they be looking for, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's about them knowing that they can make a contribution and impact. And I think that what they stand for, their team members, their organisation has to align with the values and the mission of what, say, for example, the Lewis Foundation has to align with what that business does. Otherwise, it's not a fit and it won't work. But if there is people that get in contact, personally, I always invite them down to see what we do firsthand, because it's the best way to explain it. Because I can say, we provide gift packs and support, but when you come down and see what exactly it is we do and the scale of it and hear the stories, people will buy into it. So I'm very much come down exactly, let me showcase to you what I do and give me an hour of time and take them round so they can visually see it. That's get our support. Yeah, we're having those visual conversations.
That's a great message. Right now, what kind of support, whether that's funding, skills, or something else, what would unlock the most impact for you and the Lewis Foundation, for you, Lee, and the Lewis Foundation right now? What sort of things are you hoping to get, and what support would you find most valuable?
So for us, there's two forms of support. It's the surplus stock donation support. I don't appreciate how many businesses have slow moving end of season stock, their stock that they've ordered that just sitting in their warehouses that they would then throw away because it costs too much. Yep. So for us, there's such a variety of products that can be accessed, whether it's the toiletries, the books, the journals that we can put into our packs, which means then we have more money to then buy other products to help more people. Any business or organisation of any size that has stock donations in that way, irrespective, if you don't think we could take it, just ask. We probably can. We're very creative on what we take. That makes a massive impact, because we can either use it for the packs, the cafes, shop. So it'll be repurposed. And then just partnerships, really, in terms of like sponsorships of the packs as well. We have businesses that will fund the packs for a period of time. Like, for example, the Scott Bader and Wollaston have funded the Lewis Foundation fountain for a very long period of time. And people know it's from them because they have their logo on the front of the packs. And then people have gone to them because they say, people have said to them, my staff members and my family received a pack. It had your logo on in the hospital. So I think it's, those sponsorships of the packs and those products can help us to drive what we're doing further.
Scott Bader, another company, very generous in terms of their support.
And very focused on giving back to the community. And they've supported us for probably about 5 years, like just funding the packs just so it can get to support people in the local community.
So looking ahead, 5 to 10 years into the future, what would success look like for a charity like the Lewis Foundation that focus on gifts and comfort for hospital patients? Or it might be something beyond that now. You obviously alluded to the potential of things, moving into a different directions. What does the next 5 or 10 years look like for you? Yeah,
I think the gift packs were still there because there's a need for them, because the amount of different hospitals asking for them. So I think that will always be a core service of the Lewis Foundation. But for us now, it's like looking at how do we support people from like day one. So from the moment they're diagnosed, whether it's through to when they're in remission or if they've passed away, what happens to the families? And I think the conversations that we've been having from the podcast and being in a hospital setting is that people feel like they're a number, and it's about quite rightly treating a disease, but also we're still humans here and we're still people. Yeah. So the next 10 years for us is really about exploring about what we can do for that kind of human-centered care and bringing it back what it should be, which has kind of been lost because the hospitals have been so busy. So we do want to explore different aspects of, like, when you are diagnosed from day one, that you have that wraparound support, whether that's counselling or that support line where you can ask questions for the patients and their families, and what initiatives can we drive in terms of societal change, and that chemo is not a 9 to 6 Monday to Friday like a job. It's actually what we do to provide that service around. So I think it's developing into more like advocacy work as well as driving change to a system that's always been the way it has been for a long time. Driving that societal change so that every person in the community to get on board. Like you said, it's like 1 in 2 people can be diagnosed with cancer. We all are going to need some support at some point in our lives. It's become a community that will support each other when you want to level of support in place.
Because if we're not affected by it directly ourselves, we'll know somebody that is. And so it is something that we have a responsibility for, I think, in one way or another, to support the sorts of things that you're trying to achieve. So we are going to move on to the sort of quick fire questions just to finish off, and these just some fun questions to end with. So Lorraine, tea or coffee, and how do you like it?
So it'd be tea, and it's very milky, so basically it's like a cup of milk.
A milky tea.
Very milky.
With sugar?
No sugar. It's literally like a cup of milk.
And are you more of an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird. So I'm very much, I'll get up early and I'm hitting the gym straight away. That's like kind of my focus to set me up for the day. So I always get up very early. By the evening, I'm not very good in the evening. I'm not very sociable.
What's early for you then?
So anything from 4 o'clock, really. 4 a.m.
Wow. That is nearly a night owl. It's so early.
Literally, I'm like in the middle.
Okay, great. Well, after a particularly heavy day, either on the wards or in the warehouse or in the retail or writing the books or the podcast, what helps you switch off and reset? You mentioned that by the evenings, you're ready to switch off.
Sometimes it's like doing some artwork, which is I find very relaxing. It might be watching something like on Netflix or something, but it needs to be something light. I would say probably in a weekday, those would be the kind of like things I would do, or read and journal. They might switch downtime things.
Journaling. What's one thing about you that might surprise people who only know you as the CEO of the Lewis Foundation? What sort of surprising facts can you reveal about yourself on this podcast?
I think I'm most surprised, especially like with my ultra runs I've been doing, because then they think I'm crazy. It's something I've got back. I hadn't really done before, so I used to do like more like trail running.
Okay.
I've come across a company called Rat Race, and they do like these like ultra marathon events. Last year I did Hadrian's Wall. Like you had like 26 hours to complete it. So that was 70 miles. So it nearly destroyed me, and I learned I needed to train. So this year I'm in the process of training. So this year I'm doing 100 miles. Northumberland to Edinburgh Castles. I think people are always surprised because they're like, how do you find time to fit it in? But from a mental perspective, like having those training sessions and a goal to work towards and having an achievement feels really great. So people are usually surprised, like, where do you find the time?
Well, I think we find the time by waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, that's when I'll get my training.
Or anyone who's listening who's been moved, informed, changed by what you've shared and talked about today, and they want to support the work of the Lewis Foundation, what's the best next step that they can take to support your work?
I mean, we've always got our website, www.thelewisfoundation.co.uk, but in terms of like following our journey, like on a day-to-day, our social media channels are the best way. You can see every element of what we're doing, from gift packing, stories, businesses that are getting involved. So we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So just search for the Lewis Foundation, and that will really give you a real oversight and sense of what we do on a daily basis.
Do you manage your social media as well?
Yeah, it is a big job. It's a big job, but it's so important. We get so much support from sharing on social media, and it's when we're out and about, people are like, I've seen that post, or I saw you do this, because they follow our social media channels. From our perspective, social media is so important in kind of sharing that message, whether that's the Lewis Foundation's general one, but also a lot of people follow my personal one, and people buy into the people. So, support for the Lewis Foundation by people just following what I'm doing on an individual basis as well. So just search Lorraine Lewis, LinkedIn and Instagram. And again, you can see what I'm doing on a more personal level for the Lewis Foundation as well. So you'll get to know who I am and what I'm up to.
That's great. Well, Lorraine, thank you so much for your generous and honest conversation, and for taking us behind the scenes of the Lewis Foundation. You've given us a real clear sense of what life is really like on the wards, and how something as simple as thoughtfully chosen gifts can cut through fear and loneliness in a way that stays with people long after they leave hospital. You've also shown what can happen when one family's experience, yours, and with Lee's mum, Janice, at the centre of it, is turned into a focused, well-run charity that now reaches patients across 17 hospitals, bringing together volunteers, hospitals and supporters to do something quietly but profoundly human at scale. I think you're a thoroughly decent human being. I think you're a real inspiration. I hope this has really encouraged you to think not just about care in clinical terms, but about comfort, dignity, and the small human touches that make all the difference. So thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you for having us. It was a great conversation.
Thank you. And in our next episode, I'll be joined by Simon Green, CEO of YMCA Milton Keynes, where we'll explore youth homelessness, housing and opportunity, looking at what it really takes to give young people facing crisis a genuine chance to rebuild their lives.